All right, good evening, everybody. I'm glad that a few of you were able to make it tonight to our second week live session for DES 305, Web Portfolio Design. And hello to everybody who is watching at home. Yes, good evening on a holiday. I'm glad that you guys were able to make it. I am Shannon McNamara, your graphic arts instructor. So let's take a look at our agenda for tonight. We are going to go over a couple of announcements. We're going to go over the principles of effective web design, and then we're going to hop back into Muse so we can go over some widgets and some forms, and we're also going to go over resizing elements. I just wanted to show you guys a couple of things. You may have had some notes from me, and just in case if they were a little bit difficult to understand, I can kind of show you some of the things that I may have made mention of in the comments of your grade for your Muse project. And just to let everyone know, the grades for this week are in as long as you have submitted your work by last night. I had all of the grades in for all of the work that I saw. By this morning around, I think, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So your grades should be posted for week one's work. All right, let's take a look. This is a good segue to get into our due dates. So all assignments and assessments are due by Saturday at midnight for full credit. I will accept late work. However, there will be a 20% deduction on your grade. If you are going to be late with anything, please communicate with me. I'm very easy to work with, at least I like to think so. And, you know, if you need some extra time and you are communicating with me, I can definitely work something out so you will not lose those points. Also, your week 4 assignments cannot be turned in late. And discussion posts are due, the original discussion post is due Wednesday by midnight, and please respond to 2 of your fellow students by Saturday and post on 2 different days. I will not accept late discussion posts because we've all moved on from the previous week. So, you know, just make sure that you're getting that done. If you miss the Wednesday deadline for your original one, you'll only lose 5 points if you post from Thursday on. So it's definitely worth, you know, putting in the effort and getting that discussion done, because 55 points is way better than 0 points. So again, you know, just make sure that you're communicating with me regarding your late work, or if you run into a situation during the week, and I will do my best to, you know, try to work with you. All right, so let me hop over into the course and take a peek at our announcements. So I have posted our learning coach, Christy Paulson, her hours for this week, for week 2. Her schedule is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so she has a lot of hours this week. Wednesday from 12 to 7 p.m., Thursday from 4 to 9 p.m., and Friday from 4 to 9 p.m., and all of her times are Mountain Standard Time. So if you have any questions with homework, asking, you know, need somebody to look over your discussion before you post it, she's definitely great. Some of the other learning coaches are able to help in Muse, but whenever we're in a web course, there are less learning coaches that do web. So if I am not available and Christy is not available, you may be able to find somebody who can answer that question. But if it's something really in-depth, you may need to wait for one of us. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're going into the Student Success Center. All right, if you are missing work from week 1, there is definitely still time to fix this. Try and get those missing assignments or assessments in as soon as you can, because there is still time to bring up your grade going into week 2. Yes, exactly. Wanda is really good with Muse. Usually, it seems as though if I don't have Christy for a learning coach. I sometimes have Wanda, and Russell is great as well. The three of them I know do web, and there's a couple of other people in there who do web as well, but those are the three names I can think of off the top of my head that know Muse. And that is it for announcements. Let's just, while we're over in the course, take a look at our discussion for week 2. So this week, we're going to be discussing the user experience. So in today's fast-paced world, we only have seconds to grab someone's attention. Think about that. Think of the last time you were on a website that was not working properly. Think about how long you stayed on that website before you finally just gave up and you navigated somewhere else to find what it was that you were looking for. So this is what we're talking about when we say, today's fast-paced world and only having seconds to grab someone's attention. Websites that follow best user interface UI practices will have contact information, so email, phone number, and maybe an address in either the header or the footer of the site. In addition, there may be a contact form. Contact forms need to be short, easy to use, and well designed. So our prompt for this week, if the websites you used in the week 1 discussion pertaining to good or bad design with form design, you can use it this week. So what we're going to be talking about this week is locating 2 portfolios or professional designers, and they can be companies, who have a well-designed form. So you want to explain why the form works well in the user interface. Explain why the client used the fields that they did. So the fields are, the inputs that you put in. Are any of the fields required? Why do you think the designer made these fields required? If there are not any required fields, why do you think the designer did that? Are there any images near the form? Do the images enhance the UI? Oh, thank you. And include a URL to the well-designed forms. And then I want you to locate 1 bad portfolio that uses a form poorly. So explain why the form is poorly designed, keeping the user interface and the user experience best practice in mind. Not just because, you don't like that website because they are doing photography and you don't like photography. You have to think about, as a user on this website, I had a hard time putting in my information, so I think that the form is poorly designed. And I'll actually give you an example of something that drives me bonkers in forms after I finish reading this. Include a URL to the poorly designed form and discuss how you would change the UI and the UX design of the form. Then discuss how you will implement what you have learned about UI and UX form design in your own form this week. For your citation, you may use articles that show examples of well-designed forms. You can also find articles from experts that explain those best practices. So in your response post, explain why you agree or disagree with the well-designed and poorly designed form that your classmates selected. Provide a suggestion on how the poorly designed form can be improved, and discuss if you see yourself implementing the well-designed form in your website and how. So one of the things that drives me absolutely bonkers when I need to fill out a form and submit a form is when I need to put in the phone number, if it makes me put in the dashes. So here's an example. Let's say that this is a form and I need to put in a phone number, and I'm putting in 508, 555, 1212 or something. And I get an error, and the error says that your phone number needs to be put in this format. But it doesn't automatically put the brackets in for me, and it doesn't automatically put the dash in for me. That drives me bananas. It especially drives me bananas if I am trying to fill out this form on my cell phone. So now with my thumb, I need to keep going into the special characters, type to add in all of these special characters. The form should just take my phone number in, as long as it has all 7 or all 10 digits, and understand that it is a phone number. So those are some examples of where the user interface might, that user interface is really hindering my experience with the form. So these are the things that you want to keep in mind when you are creating a form this week. Think of all the things that kind of drive you nuts when you're filling out a form online, and try not to do those things. Another thing might be if you require a CAPTCHA at the end. I understand that, but at the same time, maybe if they put in enough information, you don't need the CAPTCHA. So these are some other things that you can do. You might just want to require a phone number or require a email address or something like that. Although I also hate when a phone number is required, because I don't necessarily want to give a company my phone number, because I'm filling out the form because I want you to email me back. I really don't want to end up on the phone with you. And I'm sure I can't be the only one who feels that way. So just some kind of things to keep in mind when you're looking for a bad form. It might not be that the form looks bad. It might just be the information that they're requiring of you, the user, or how they expect you to type in that information. Those can all be things that will make a form poorly designed. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with the looks. So that might make it a little bit easier for you to kind of locate one bad form this week. And I'm glad everybody else feels me on the getting the phone call. That drives me so nuts. It's always a sales call too, and I always feel so bad getting off the phone with these people, but I'm working during the day and I don't have time for this. And chances are pretty good that whatever it is I filled out the form for, I was kind of interested in it, but not really, because if I was really interested, I probably would have called you on my own. So I have a couple of examples that I had posted in the discussion already. Just some interesting looking forms. I always can appreciate a form that's kind of quirky and fun. So, those, you can kind of find some similar examples if you so desire for your good forms as opposed to your bad forms. And then while we're over here, let's take a look at the assignment and assessment for this week. So for week 2's assignment, we're going to be using advanced widgets. So we used widgets last week when we were adding our navigation in. That was a widget. And when we downloaded a third-party widget, also a widget, and our slideshows were also a widget. For the assignment for this week, what we're going to be doing is designing some content within an accordion or a tabbed panel. And we're also going to be designing a contact form that implements good user interface. And then we're going to identify and implement interactive elements that follow current best practices in web design. We'll identify and implement animations that follow best practices as well. So for this assignment, you will continue to work on the 2-page website that you were designing last week for Independence University Graphic Arts program. And this week, you're going to design the second page. That was that degree page, which will showcase the different degree programs that Independence University offers, the potential careers and the applications that students will learn. There will also be a contact form that students can use to reach out to a recruiter to learn more about a specific program. So after watching or coming to this week's live session, you will select a tabbed or accordion panel. So you can use either or, and you're going to place the copy that you'll download here, which is that degree copy. And then here's a hint, you'll want to use 2 tabbed or accordion panels. one for the associate's degree and one for the bachelor's degree. So there's going to be 2 sections. And then using public domain images, so the same thing that you did last time, you want to add at least 1 photo for each of the degrees offered. And when you're adding the photos, you know, think about what the copy says. You know, you're talking about degrees, so make sure your photos are relevant to the information that's within those panels. And then the second thing that you're going to do is design a form. So you're going to use the form widget and place this form on that degree page, and it needs to have the following fields: name, email, cell phone number, and a checkbox or drop down for degree the viewer is interested in learning more about, and then a message box. Add your email address to the send to field in the options, and then return the visitor to the home page after they have sent the form. And then you'll design the submit button with normal rollover mouse down and submit in process. So we're going to kind of do the same thing that we did with our navigation. We'll just change the different states of that button. And then you're going to design the form interface to make your website, layout and color scheme. So that means it should match basically your home page, you know, or match the whole scheme that you're going with on this website. Then you will zip and submit the Muse document for grading. So that is your assignment for week 2. And our assessment, which we're not going to get into tonight, we'll get into this tomorrow night, is creating a responsive design. So we will test and publish the responsive portfolio website live on the internet. So after designing the form and panels, we need to make our website responsive and implement best SEO practices. So for those of you who are here tonight, what does it mean to make it responsive? You can type your response in the chat. Right, it's responsive to different media. So the site begins to kind of in a way redraw itself when it hits breakpoints. So we're going to add a breakpoint for iPads, and we're going to add a breakpoint for morph mode. That's a really good way to put it. Yes, exactly. It starts to morph. And we'll also add a breakpoint for a cell phone, and then we're going to download a mobile menu file that will be used when it's in those breakpoints. So when that menu file is placed, you'll hide the interactive menu and then drag the mobile menu to your master, and you'll design the mobile menu, and it'll show only when you're on a breakpoint, and then the regular menu will show when you're on the desktop view. So it's going to be kind of cool. We'll be doing that tomorrow. Then we're going to add SEO. So all images must have alt tags for SEO, and all pages must have titles and descriptions and metadata. And then we're going to upload the website to a web server, which is super easy to do in Muse. It's probably the easiest in Muse, as opposed to, you know, just coding a site or even using Dreamweaver. I find that publishing with Muse is almost the easiest part of Muse. You just click a button. It's great. And then we'll name our file and submit the URL and the zip Muse file. But again, we'll get to the assessment tomorrow night. Tonight, we're going to really look over what we're going to be doing in the assignment. All right. So let's talk about, before we get to that, some principles of effective web design. So I have Steve Jobs, may he rest in peace, on my screen. And design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. And I feel that this quote really, really exemplifies web design, because, you know, it's one thing to sit there and hold a printed piece and, you know, it's in your hand. You can kind of flip it back and forth. You can bring it closer if you need to look at the small type, you know, further away to just read it normally. But, you know, the design of a website is how the navigation works, how the layout works, where things are located on the screen, how a person, gets from page to page. It's definitely, there's more to a website than a printed piece. There's just so many different parts that go into the design of a web page and an entire website, and how it all interacts together and interacts with you, the viewer. So websites that are not well designed tend to perform poorly and have suboptimal Google Analytic metrics. So they might have high bounce rates, low time on the site, low pages per visit, and low conversions. So I guess my question is, what makes good web design? And I'll ask you guys who are here tonight, what makes good web design? What makes you stay on a website? I'll give you a second. It catches your eye, right? Yep. The interaction, good. How about how easy it is for you to find the information that you're looking for? Yeah, exactly. The info you need. Right, exactly. Exactly. Because that's the whole reason that you're there, probably, is to get information. It's not, I mean, unless if you're just kind of scrolling because you're bored, and there's a lot of that. I mean, Facebook is probably, I would say, 50% to get information, albeit information on your family and friends, or maybe, see what else is going on, and 50% scrolling because you're bored, right? Oh, it doesn't take a long time to load. Exactly. All of these things, because, back in the 90s, when I first started using the web, anything that loaded in under a few minutes was like, whoa, that's awesome. It loaded in under a few minutes, and this web page has 3 images on it. I mean, the big thing was if your parents or you as an adult, but I still lived at home in the 90s, and it was if, my mom upgraded to a 56K modem, and that was like the best thing ever. And now when we're sitting there on our cell phones with the internet in our hands, and I kind of laugh at myself when I get aggravated if something takes a few seconds to load. When 10 years ago, I didn't have a cell phone that had the web. So it's really funny to, to see how far we've come in such a short amount of time, and also how aggravated we are with antiquated technology that we would have been so excited about just 5 years ago. Yeah, I had dial-up for years. And when I first moved out, I didn't even have dial-up because that was expensive. I lived a great many years without cable or the internet. So, those principles of effective web design. Number 1, purpose. Good web design always caters to the needs of the user. Are your web visitors looking for information, entertainment, some type of interaction, or to transact with your business? Each page of your website needs to have a clear purpose and to fulfill a specific need for your website users in the most effective way possible. So when your user gets there, if they're looking for information, that information needs to be readily available. If they're there just for entertainment, to just kind of scroll and scroll and scroll, different things should load quickly. That has to do with, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, things like that just need to load quickly. Instagram on your phone. Think about it. If you hit a point when you're sitting there scrolling with your thumb and it kind of just starts to spin, you probably leave the app immediately. If you're trying to buy something off of, say, like eBay or Etsy, I should be able to, do that transaction easily. And I should be able to do that transaction in 2017 on either my desktop or my cell phone. And know that transaction is going to be secure and it's going to be quick. Oh yes, I'm looking at the chat, and there's a discussion regarding the internet and the way things were, and I was also thankful forever for those free AOL discs that they used to send in the mail, and it gave you what, like 15 free hours, because you used to have to pay by the time. And yeah, um, and we pay a lot for our internet now. When you stop and think about it, even if you get rid of cable, you cut the cord for cable, it's very difficult to just cut the cord for the internet. And a lot of times the cable companies are onto us. They know we all have Netflix, and we just really want them for the cable. So the minute or for the internet, so the minute you cut cable, they double the price of your internet. So there really is no winning at the moment. Someday though, somebody's gonna come up with something, and we'll still pay for it. All right, so number 2, communication. People on the web tend to want information quickly, so it's important to communicate clearly and make your information easy to read and digest. Some effective tactics to include in your web design include organizing information using headlines and subheadlines, using bullet points instead of long, windy sentences, and cutting the waffle. So cutting all the crap out of your website. So I was randomly enough discussing this on Facebook with my cousin last night about long-winded information on the web, and just using bullet points. And one of the things that the two of us were griping about were recipe blogs. People who write a blog and write long-winded paragraphs about how the reason why they came up with this recipe is because their husband's dog's something's uncle, is allergic to asparagus, and therefore they made their signature dish with artichokes instead. And we both said, you know what? Nobody cares. Just get to the recipe. How many other people have gone on to a recipe blog and you just scroll right down to the bottom just so you can find the ingredient list and how long it's going to take to put this together, and what do I need to set my oven at? No, seriously, I don't care. I don't care. I just want the recipe. And for a while I had a blog going with a whole bunch of recipes, and I never wrote anything. I just said, I know you don't want to read this, so here's the recipe. Because I knew nobody wanted to read it and nobody cared why I made it. So I just used to just give the ingredients and some pictures showing how it was made, and I was like, here you go. I had tons of views. I should get back to doing that. So think about why your readers are there, and honestly, most people are not going to read all of that. I hate to tell you, everybody who has a blog about food, nobody cares. They really just want the recipe. All right, number 3, typefaces. So in general, sans serif fonts such as Arial and Verdana are easier to read online. Sans serif fonts are contemporary looking fonts without those decorative finishes and no feet. The ideal font size for reading easily online is 16 pixels, and stick to a maximum of 3 typefaces and a maximum of 3 point sizes to keep your design nice and streamlined. And I included a link to a great article on 16 pixel body copy that I really encourage you to read. It really explains why we should be using at least 16-point type on the web. And it gets into how far people are sitting from their screen as opposed to how far people are when they are holding a printed piece, and how they can bring a printed piece closer, but you don't want your user to have to really squint and get close to their screen. And about how websites that have smaller than 16-point body copy are really tending to lose users, because there are a lot of people with sight problems who still use the internet, and there's a lot of people who are older who have a harder time seeing. So it really gets into kind of the nitty gritty of why you want to use 16 pixels, not 60, for body copy. Number 4, colors. A well thought out color palette can go a long way to enhance the user experience. Complementary colors create balance and harmony. Using contrasting colors for the text and background will make reading easier on the eye. Vibrant colors create emotion and should be used sparingly. Example would be for buttons or calls to action. And last but not least, white space and negative space is very effective at giving your website a modern and uncluttered look. So remember how we were looking at, website through the ages last week? Keep that in mind when we got to, those last couple of sites and what companies are doing now on the web and how airy and clean their design is. A lot of websites, a website looks more modern based on how uncluttered it is. A cluttered website definitely looks aged and kind of reminds us of, the Apple site from 1997. Images. A picture can speak 1,000 words, and choosing the right images for your website can help with brand positioning and connecting with your target audience. If you don't have high quality professional photos on hand, consider purchasing stock photos to lift the look of your website. Also consider using infographics. Videos and graphics as these can be much more effective at communicating than even the most well-written piece of text. Think about that. Everybody loves infographics now. If you go on, probably a place where I see the most infographics is actually on Pinterest. Randomly enough, whenever I search for something on Pinterest, it seems like there's always a very well-designed infographic that has everything I need right there, and I can pin it and then just look at that infographic, and it has all the information based on whatever it was that I was looking for. So, infographics are really cool. They're very now. And they're usually illustrated as a nice clean illustration with, interesting fonts, kind of hip and, great colors that really stand out. So those are the types of things that you can place on your website. Navigation. Navigation is about how easy it is for people to take action and move around your website. So some tactics for effective navigation include a logical page hierarchy, using breadcrumbs, designing clickable buttons, and following the 3-click rule, which means users will be able to find the information that they are looking for within 3 clicks. You never want somebody clicking all over your website trying to find your phone number. It should be right there for them to see. And 7, a grid-based layout. Placing content randomly on your webpage can end up with a haphazard appearance that is messy. Grid-based layouts arrange content into sections, columns, and boxes that line up and feel balanced, which leads to a better-looking website design. And 8, the F pattern. Eye tracking studies have identified that people scan computer screens in an F pattern. Most of what people see is in the top and left of the screen, and the right side of the screen is rarely seen. So think of right here on the F. Right here, rarely seen. Rather than trying to force the viewer's visual flow, effectively designed websites will work with a reader's natural pattern and display of information in order of importance, so left to right and then top to bottom. So whatever you put right here is definitely going to be seen last. And load time. Everybody hates a website that takes ages to load, so tips to make page load times more effective include optimizing image sizes, so size and scale, combining code into a central CSS or JavaScript file, which Muse does that for us automatically. This reduces HTTP requests, and minifying HTML, CSS, and JavaScript compressed to speed up their load time. Again, lucky for us, Muse does all of this for us. And then mobile friendly. It is now commonplace to access websites from multiple devices with multiple screen sizes, so it's important to consider if your website is mobile friendly. This is why we will be building our website with a responsive layout, and again, more on that tomorrow. So think about how you use the web personally. Do you use the web these days more on your computer or more on a tablet / mobile phone? The only time I use the web on my laptop is if I'm working. You know, if I'm sitting at my laptop working, I'll definitely access a page on my laptop. But we always have our phones on us these days. Our phones are in our pocket, or most of the time, our phone is in our hand. I mean, think about it. Is your phone ever not within arm's reach these days? We plug our phone ins on our bedside table. It's probably the first thing you grab in the morning and the last thing you look at before you go to bed. I don't know, we could definitely have a discussion on what that says about us as a society. Yes, exactly. I won't say that out loud, but exactly. And that is how we basically access the web. And I mean, I actually had a friend who tried to get rid of his cell phone, but then he found that he had a tablet, just like an iPad that had Wi-Fi and had a plan to it. And he brought that everywhere with him. So even if we got rid of our cell phones, chances are good we would then have a tablet on us, or we would have something else on us that would access the web. But my whole point is that we're actually accessing the web on a much smaller screen. So I could almost argue that a mobile design is more important than a desktop design these days, because we probably spend 80 to 90% of our time on the web on a small screen, as opposed to a larger screen. So it's probably more important that those breakpoints look correct than the actual site itself and how it is going to work on a desktop version. I mean, seriously, and I'm not the only one who probably thinks this, but it's kind of funny that we start designing as a larger site and we work our way down to the mobile version. And some of you have probably taken, it was APP 242 and now it's DES, I want to say 241. And we always started in Dreamweaver, designing the desktop version, and then we worked our way down to the mobile version. But now we start at the mobile version and we work our way up to the desktop version. So it actually makes sense because that's the way that we use the web now. Interesting. You ran across a site today that wasn't sized for mobile view. And did you have to, zoom in with your fingers to see content that you needed and then zoom back out to get back to the navigation, then zoom back in again? And it's very annoying to do that. If you've never had a Dreamweaver class, Dreamweaver is, it's definitely far more coding, but in the end, you're doing the same thing. You end up with a website that works for mobile, for your mobile phone, your tablet, and your desktop. But it's definitely a whole lot more coding. Oh, even worse, that the images were too big. So you left. Exactly. And this is where that's clearly that company lost eyeballs, lost a potential customer, lost a potential sale. This is what happens if we don't think through all of these just basic principles of effective web design. All right, so let's get back into Muse. Woo, it's a Monday. I've been going since about 6 a.m. this morning. So we're going to discuss some resizing within Muse, advanced widgets, accordion and tab panels, and forms. So again, your Adobe should be updated to CC 2017. I always put this notice, but I haven't run across anyone who seems to be having any problems with that. So that's good. Oh, yes. Okay. I see what you're saying. All right. So in Muse, again, we want to make sure that we're working outside of that working site that we created, and that the working site has all of the different components that we've added through the assignment and the assessment for week 1. Just gonna open up my working site and see where we left off. So this is where I left off last Tuesday. And there's a couple of things that I want to point out. And hold on one second. I'm just going to take a sip of my water. All right, there we go. So when we left off on Tuesday, we had added in the Design Your Future, the body copy, a slideshow, and a third-party widget. But there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. And that water went down the wrong pipe, which was totally the opposite of what I was going for, which was to make it a little bit easier to talk. All right, so make sure that the width of your site is no more than 1,200 pixels. Anything larger, and you're gonna have some difficulty downsizing it, you know, going into those breakpoints and just making sure that it shows correctly on all different desktop screens. So one of the things that I wanted to point out was, I'm going to just select this text in the resize option. So with the black selection tool, I've selected this text box right here. I haven't selected the text in the text box. I've just selected the text box on its own as an element. And I want to discuss resizing, which is this option right here. And you'll notice that it has responsive width, none, and stretch to browser width as some options. Oh, my goodness, excuse me. So if I had told you that you might want to change the resize on your element to none, what you would do is you would have that element selected and change it from responsive width, which means that it's going to respond to the size of your browser. See how it redrew the Design Your Future as the browser window got smaller? That is resizing, the resizing option. And if I had it, if I had it set to none, it would not resize, which means it would stay the same size and it would eventually run off the page, which is not a good option, you know, for this. But so let me change that to responsive width. There we go. So those are, that was one of the things that had come up as a question. So I just wanted to point that out. Another thing that I want to point out is, and let me go into my master for this, which you might have heard from me, is making sure all of your elements that need to be located within the header are located within the header. So you have gone into your master and you've dragged this header arrow or guide down, so that way everything within these two guides, so this arrow right here and this arrow right here, is within this header section. And the same goes for your footer, that this top arrow is at the top of the footer, and everything within these two sets of arrows are your footer elements. And what I didn't mention next week, and I didn't notice this on anyone's, but just in case, everything that's in your footer, make sure that when you select it with your direct selection tool, that footer is checked. That tells the site basically that this is a footer element, which is important because we did a sticky footer to keep everything down at the bottom. So you want to make sure that each of these items has stuck to the footer. So make sure that anything that's in the footer, that footer is checked. And trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to show you that might have gotten a little bit confusing last week. Probably not. Did anybody who's here tonight have a specific question of anything that they were confused about that they wanted me to go over tonight before I get going with the panels and the forum? Oh, yes, I can go over browser fill. Yes. All right. So let me go back into my master. All right, so see how I have this pattern right here in my background. And what I have done is I have used the browser fill to fill in the background instead of placing an image. And let me open up my original Photoshop mockup. Open in Photoshop. All right. Everything always takes so long. I'll build that one. Oh, must have, oops. Ugh. Oh my goodness. All right, hold on. That was the assignment part 1. All right, here we go. All right, so instead of taking this part of my image, which is layer 1, let's say, and dragging it into Muse where I already have, as an image, just this image and placing it, what you want to do is within Muse, you want to use the browser fill. And the reason why you want to do that is, let me preview this in my browser. And I'm going to show you it both ways, so that way you can kind of see my point that I'm making. All right, so you can see how my browser page is a little bit wider than what I've created in Muse. You can tell because the black on either side of my main image, it's starting to go off into black, basically, which you can't see in Muse, but you know that I put that black rectangle back there. I did that last week, and you can see it right here. And this black rectangle is set to resize, stretch to the browser width. And then I've placed this image on top, which is set to just be responsive width and height, but not to stretch to my browser width. So you can see how that rectangle stretches. Well, if I had placed this background as just an image, which I'll create, and drag that there. So let's say that I had that as just an image. Let me get rid of my background. Oops, wrong library. And send that to the back. All right, so let me preview this again in the browser, just so I can show you. And I noticed that there's some typing in the chat. Let me Let me just read that real quick. So you can see, all right, so here's the image, but it's only 1200 by, I think it was 960 pixels. So you can see how it doesn't extend throughout my whole site. And instead, it just kind of goes to white in the background. But if, just Command Z a whole bunch of times. If I use a browser fill instead, there it is. Now it's extended throughout, no matter what size my page is, it's always, that image is always in the background. And the same would go for the color. So that's why you want to use browser fill, because it actually fills up the whole browser as opposed to, you know, just that placed image and then it doesn't tile. So that's why you want to do it that way, as opposed to placing an image. Okay, let me go back into the chat. So relinking images. Okay, so images are found if you go to Window Assets. These are where your images are found. And it will show you if they are missing. And what you're going to need to do is locate them kind of how you would in InDesign, or yeah, pretty much InDesign. You know, Muse is really based off of the InDesign platform. So a lot of things work the same in Muse, how they work in InDesign. And what you can do is you can right click on that asset and go to relink. And you can then find it on your computer and relink it back to where it is. So that way it doesn't show up missing in your page. All right, let me see what else there is. Oh, okay, yep, Dallas, yeah, that's fine. You know, remove, I know exactly what you're talking about, how you removed the IU in the background and then you added in that widget. That's completely fine if you want to go back to using the IU, no problem. I mean, our designs should be evolving each week. So that's completely fine. And do you know how to make that as a pattern? Okay, great, great. Yeah, because if you're going to add an image in the background, you want to make sure that you make it as a pattern. So, like, let's say that I wanted the square of the 8 of my pixel 8 as a pattern. I'll just show that for everybody else who might not know how to do this. Hold on one second. Photoshop. I moved everything around and now everything that was in my, there we go. Oh, no worries. Thank you for making it. All right, so let's say that I have this part of my logo and I want to make it a pattern. What I will do is I'm going to select just the part that I want in Photoshop, and I'm going to copy it and then close out my logo because I don't want to screw up my logo. Do a new document from my clipboard and just hit create and paste. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to give some space to it. Because if this is patterned, it's literally going to be like one on top of the other. I need a little bit of space around it. So I'm going to go into image canvas size, and I want to add the space all around. So I'm going to make sure the dot, the anchor, is right in the center there. And maybe I'll change it to 1.5 by 1.5 and hit OK. And I'll do File, Save As. New logo pattern. Save it as a JPEG. And go back into Muse, and I can show you what this would look like. Browser fill. Put it in here, there we go. And even though this is clearly, you know, way too much, that's how you can make a logo as a, you know, make a logo into a pattern or make something into a pattern. So here I have equal space. Let me go to my homepage just so we can appreciate this for how awful it is. So there's equal space, it's completely patterned. That's how you would kind of make a pattern. Let me get rid of that though, because that hurts my eyes to look at. There we go. And if you have, you know, that's where going to that subtlepatterns.com will kind of help you out, because it's already set up to be a pattern where each of the edges are going to meet. I used to have to make patterns. I used to work for Benjamin Moore, the paint company, and I was their Photoshop specialist. And one of the things that I used to have to do for my job was to make patterns to be used on the web. If you ever go in and use their room decorator tool and you see, you know, let's say it allows you to put like different flooring in and stuff like that. Like I used to have to make the patterns to make sure that when it added a floor in, it looked seamless. Or if it added wallpaper in, the wallpaper patterned seamlessly on your wall when you took a picture of your wall and added the wallpaper in. We used to build apps for other companies too, not just Benjamin Moore. But you know, so there is a system to creating a pattern, and it's kind of fun, but it's really tedious. Let me tell you. But yeah, it was a pretty cool job. So now when it comes to making patterns, you know, this right here, this is a pattern. I didn't do this one. My husband actually created this one, but this is a pattern. So you got to find where, you know, the different things meet up, and then so that way as each edge meets up with a different edge, you get like the seamlessness. See, there's a whole lot to it. But anyways, into what we were going to be doing tonight. So you will be doing this on your degrees page. You're going to be adding either a accordion panel, or you are going to be adding a tabbed panel. So I'm going to show you how to do both. So I am going to do this on my portfolio page that I've created here. And if we have some time tonight, I'll show you some other kind of cool tricks that you can do with your navigation just to make it kind of cool looking, and then we'll be done for tonight. So I'm going to start off with the accordion panel. I'm going to drag out my widgets library just because I'm going to be working completely in that library. It'll be a little bit easier to not have to keep going over here. So like I did last week, I'm going to draw a rectangle just to make my body area a little bit bigger. And I'm going to make it an obnoxious color so that way I don't forget to delete it. Here we go. And you use the panel widget the same way that you used the navigation widget. You just drag it out onto the page. So I'm going to show you the accordion one first. Drag it out. Just plop it here. So again, right here where the blue arrow is, you can change some options, you know, such as edit together. I think it's good to kind of edit it together rather than having to edit each part of the box separately, because you want there to be a consistency to your design. So, you know, to have that consistency, you should probably be editing things together. You can do overlap items below when it's expanded, or can close all, which means that there won't be one panel that's always open. You can just close them all. I'm just going to leave it as is. Now you can also resize this. So you need to select it and then resize it. Kind of grab everything together. And you'll notice that there's 3 separate sections here. So we have this lorem ipsum section, this ut eget velis section, and this morris, I don't know, it's Greek, right? Latin. And this morris, I can't speak Latin. I can speak lorem ipsum. That's about it. All right, so you have 3 sections. This is what defaults. You can add another section by clicking the plus. So that adds another section. And you can delete a section literally by selecting label and deleting it. So click, click, delete, because we need to have 2 sections. Now, you can change how the labels look up here. So with it selected, I'm going to go to label. When it's open, that's active. I'm going to change the fill to maybe this lighter blue color. On rollover, and change it to, what's my dropper? This? No. Come on. Come on, eyedropper. There we go. On mouse down, it kept it the same, which is fine. And then active and normal, and change it to this darker black. Maybe almost black. There we go. All right. And I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to open up text. And I want to change it from Helvetica to the font that I'm using on the whole site. Go with Source Sans Bold. And I'm going to go with all caps. For active, I don't want white text. That's a little bit difficult to see. So I'm going to change my text to black. And I should double check all my other ones. Rollover. That gray is very difficult to see on top of that color. So I'm going to change that to white. Mouse down is fine. Active, fine. Normal, fine. All right, there we go. And I'm going to select inside and change the text on the inside from Helvetica to Source Sans regular. And it's only 14-point type. I want to change it to 16-point type because, again, body copy should be 16-point type. And actually, I should probably look at the type size of the headlines. That should be a little bit bigger. And I'll leave it small, 16-point when it's not on active. All right. So you'll notice, though, this doesn't have an image inside of it. I need to actually place an image into this accordion. It doesn't come with a default spot for an image. So I'm going to kind of click, click, click until I get to this text box. And again, I'm making sure that I'm kind of adhering to my grid that I have going on here. I'm going to move this text box down. Change the width of it. And I'm going to place my image right in here. So same as InDesign, you do file place. Find myself an image. I'll just use this one. And I need to place it right in here. There we go. And click off. Line them all up. There we go. And then and you can double check that it placed it correctly. Here's one, you definitely want to do that. So when I close up this box and I open up this one, this image should close up with the text to make sure that it's inside of the actual accordion panel. So I want to double check that. So that works. Okay. And open it back up. And if I click on this and start to close this up, and I can actually close up the panel as well. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing on the second panel. Change my font to the body copy to Source Sans Pro, regular, and 16. Or what I can do, go to my character styles, change it to body, which I saved last week. And maybe for this one, I want to put the image over on the right-hand side. So I'm going to open up just this panel a little bit. Again, move this to this part of my grid. Down a little. Click off, click on. All right, and go to File, Place. Grab my second image. And resize it just a little. There we go. And double check that it's in there and it closes up when I open this one. All right. So that's how you create an accordion panel. Yeah, it's pretty nifty. Way better than coding it, let me tell you. So that's one way that you can do this with your accordion panel. But you can also do a tabbed panel, which has those tabs up at the top. So let's take a look at that. So let me grab and delete this. And we'll drag out our tabbed panel. And again, with the whole, you'll notice it says tab container. With the whole container selected, you can resize it. It will resize the entire container. Let's check our options. So edit together, the on event, on click, total width, uniform. You can do it on click, on rollover, uniform, or fit to content. I like uniform because then everything stays the same size, and I think it should. Don't have things all resizing each other. You can add show a left icon, like a close icon, or show a right icon. Show label, you should definitely show the label so people know what they're clicking on. The elements can be horizontally center aligned, horizontally top aligned. These are these elements. Vertically center aligned, vertically left aligned. You'll leave it horizontally center aligned. And again, you should probably edit everything together. So I'm going to kind of select off of it, select again, and I'm going to click till I get to my states, my tab container states. So normal, the fill is nothing. I'm going to again change the fill color. I'm going to change it to this blue. Maybe rollover. Change it to this color. Mouse down, I can leave it at that. Active, why isn't it changing it? Oh, I need to go all the way down to label. Click, 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 click. All right, until I get to label. I was gonna say, it's not changing it. Why aren't you changing it? I wonder what it did change. All right. Label. Let's try that again. Fill. There we go. And you can change the font at the same time. You might as well while you're in there. So from Helvetica, I'm going to go to Source Sans Pro, bold, all caps, a little bit bigger of a font, and black. Roll over. Again, change my font. Bold. What font size did I make you? 16. You can also just select the whole thing and change the font, which might be a little bit easier. Source Sans Pro, bold. There we go. And at least 16 point type. We'll do the colors on their own and make it all caps. There we go. All right. That'll make your life a little bit easier. All right, active, normal. Normal, I want the background to be it's really dark greenish black. Roll over. I definitely don't want this gray. Roll over. Maybe this really light blue. I'm going to do something crazy on roller. I'm going to make it hot pink, but without a gray stroke. No stroke. I have to double check that didn't add a gray stroke on everything else. Mouse down. I'll do something weird like this. And active. All right. So I need to change the font color because these two colors do not work well together. Got white. And mouse down. That's okay. I'm not sold, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sold on this normal color. I think I want to make that black. There we go. So we've got a good, oh, and this black. Can't really see that color. All right, and so you'll notice that within this panel, there's already an image in here, and there's already the text box in here. So you can, by selecting, kind of click, click, click until you get the bounding box on whatever it is you're selecting, you can move things around and resize them. So I'm gonna take this, change my font to Source Sans Pro, at least 16 point type. And I extend this to here. And click on the image. I'm going to make the image a little bit bigger. And move it up here. And close up the content area a little bit. And then what you can do is you can right click on this image and go to replace image and select your image right within, it'll place it right in that image box. So that might be a little bit easier for you than, just placing the image and getting it into the box. So let's use this image. And then you would do the same thing for the next panel. Again, you can click on the content area. And let's say that you wanted it each one to follow the same format. What you can do is select this and this, copy it, so edit copy. Go in here, delete these, paste that in. Whoops. Actually go to edit, paste in place, and it'll paste it exactly where it belongs. And even go to this label, drop a guide so you can make sure that this content area is the same exact size. And then do the same thing with the third one. Bring that down, select these two, delete it, edit, paste in place. And then all you need to go in on tab number 2 or tab number 3 is select the image, right click, replace image, put your next image in, and your text for this one, and then you would do the same thing on this third one, but you don't need to do 3, pretend you do. Replace image, and then you would just replace the text. So now you have that consistency throughout the 3 panels where everything is located in the same exact spot. You've got the same exact text. Exactly, easy peasy. All right, so let's preview this. I'll preview it in the browser. It will be a little bit bigger for you guys to see. So here it is. You can see my different states. There we go, got the content. The images change. I didn't change my text, but the text would change too. But you can definitely, you know, you always want to make sure that you double check this. Right, it makes everything a lot easier to follow, exactly. All right, so I have to put a form on this page. If I was doing that, I'd probably put the form over here, but what I'm going to do, because I don't, you know, I want you guys to kind of figure out your own layout, so I'm going to put my form on my contact page. Oh, and I forgot to take off my portfolio page. Hold on. Forgot to remove my rectangle square. And see how it moved my footer right up? So let's say I don't want that to happen. I'm going to change the fill color to none. And I can either leave this here or move it down and place it underneath. Just so that way my panel is not right on top of my footer. Yeah, this is why I really do love views. You know, there are some things that you want to do with views that you can't really do because you need to do some like really intense coding, and I will run into that from time to time, but you can pretty much put together a pretty quick site and then get that site online in views, and that's what's so great about it. All right, so let's put together a form. Again, I'm going to draw my little handy rectangle. I swear, I could teach an entire class on designing with rectangles and how I use them for measuring or adding spaces or whatever else it is I'm doing. I use the rectangle tool for the oddest things. I will say. It's one of those things that I do. All right, so Muse, again, makes handy form widgets. So you have a detailed contact form and a simple contact form. We need a couple of different things to be within our contact form. So let's take a look and see what needs to go in there. Name, email, cell phone number, a checkbox or a drop-down for the degree that the viewer is interested in learning more about, a space for them to type a message, and then we need to put our email address in the send to field, and we need to return the visitor to the home page after they've sent. Nice. I'm glad everybody else uses rectangles in a weird way. I'm glad we can all share that. All right, so let's see. I'm going to grab a detailed form because there's quite a few things that need to go in there, and I'm going to drag that out. And this form's a little bit longer than my rectangle. So I need name. All right, that's there. I need email. That's there. I don't need company, so I'm going to select company and hit delete. I don't need work address. I don't need city. I don't need state. I don't need zip code. I don't need country. I need a message. I do need cell phone, which is weird. It didn't have that. Or did it and I deleted it? Let me see. Let me make sure I didn't delete that. Nope. Oh, there we go. All right. Add in cell phone number and what else? A checkbox. Whoops. Either a checkbox or a checkbox group or drop down. All right, so you have to have the whole form selected and click the blue arrow. So I don't need company. I don't need work address. I need email, name, cell phone. I am going to do a checkbox group, so I'll add that. I don't need a CAPTCHA, and I need the message. I feel like I'm missing something. Name, email, cell phone, checkbox group, message. I need to add my email address to the send to field in the option, so I'm going to open that up again. I need to email too. It's going to default with the email of your Adobe account. So if that's the correct email, you're fine. This is not my correct email. So I'm going to put in my Independence email, which is so long. And then after sending, I don't want to stay on current page. I want people to go to my thank you page. You want people to go to your home page. So this is where you will select under after sending, you're going to select home. I'm going to select my thank you page. And I'm going to leave edit together. Let's see. And we'll take care of the submit button afterwards. So because I got rid of some of the different options and added in options, everything's a little bit out of order. And if there's anything that we learned about forms, it's that things should make sense in your form, because if they don't, it's a really bad user experience. So if I left my form like this, somebody would be like, what on earth is going on here? You know, I put in my name, I put in my email, I have to scroll all the way down. I guess I can put on in a message. Oh wait, now you want my cell phone and here's a checkbox group. Like, this makes no sense. So we need to start doing some, you know, make this a little bit more logical. So I'm going to leave it name, email. I'm going to then move my cell phone up. So I'm going to click until I get to that cell phone group and move it up. And you'll notice how I get these blue squares that'll tell me when things are, whoops. There we go, 15 pixels. So see how everything is 15 pixels and space in between? Whoops, and then I let go before I go to 15 pixels. There we go, all right. Then I'm going to move my checkbox group. So click, click, click. Bring that up until I see 15 pixels, come on. Sometimes you have to scroll up so it sees everything. No. There we go. Then my message. And last but not least, my submit button. And I'm going to move my submit button a little bit further away. All right. So I don't want my form to be in Helvetica, which is what everything seems to default to in Muse. And, oh, whoops, form received. There's a little message down here that will pop up when the form is received, so you're going to want to move that up too. There we go. You can always tell when you click on the bounding box and see how big everything is. All right. So I don't want it to be in Helvetica, so I'm just going to select just the form, and you'll see how it says form field, and I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to change it to Source Sans Pro, and that'll take care of that. And then I can kind of make different things, you know, bold where I want bold, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to click on name and make that bold. So each of these become bold. I'm going to leave that as is with the italic because that looks like I'm supposed to type there. Let's see. Form. I'm going to click until I get to the text input. I'm going to change that fill color to this blue, but a little bit lighter. So I'm going to kind of drag that till it's like almost white. Lighter. There we go. And click until I get to the checkbox right here, and I'm going to change that fill color to be the same color so it all matches. Come on. Oh. Why are you not changing? Click, 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 fill. Oh, you say it's that color, but it's clearly not. Me and the eyedropper in Muse never get along. Oh, I know why. This is one of those things where it's not going to, yeah, it's going to put like the blue just around the edge, and it's not really going to change the fill color. So the checkbox kind of is what it is. I always forget that. It's like some weird thing in Muse. I'm going to change my submit button to be a different color. I'm going to make it black, actually. And this is where I can also change all of the states. I'm also going to make my submit maybe black in all caps. An 18-point type. And I don't want a stroke on that. No stroke. So normal is going to be black. Rollover is going to be blue. No stroke. And text color black. Mouse down can be the same. Mouse down, I'll give a stroke to it because why not? And then submit in progress, I'll do escape. Just scroll up so I can see some of my colors. Come on. Submit in progress will be maybe pink, something crazy, which I guess I didn't need to scroll up for. All right. And this font, I do not want it to be Helvetica. Go with light, maybe not light italic. Maybe regular italic. Come on. Or semi-bold italic. There we go. All right. And empty, non-empty is white. Rollover, but I'm going to give it a rollover color Maybe like that crazy pink with white. No border. Or white border. Focus, error. Leave that red because people know that that usually means that there's an error. On empty, empty. Right? And you can check or uncheck when you're in each field. All right, so let me select off. So I'm going to go click the whole form, click this name and enter name. I want to change whether or not this is required. Name, I think that should be required. Show prompt when the text went empty. If that didn't show, then that enter name would go away. I want to leave the label that says name and then the message text in there. Email, I think that they should require an entry. However, cell phone, I'm not going to require them to give me their cell phone. I'm going to uncheck that because we were talking about how we didn't want that to happen. And then to change what they, so I'm going to say for this, I'm going to say, how did you hear about us? Facebook or Twitter. You have your own options that you have to put there. You know, which degree do you want? Associates or bachelor's? So those would be your two checkbox options. And I'll leave that required. And then message. This is not required because maybe somebody doesn't have anything that they want to tell me other than what they fill out in the form. So I'm going to not require that. And double check, submit where it's going. There that is. And I'm going to show you something fun. I'm going to go over to the submit button and select that. I'm going to change the corner radius of my submit button. So let's say I want this to be right now it's set for rounded corners. So I can make those a little bit more rounded by changing the corner radius. But let's say that I want like this corner and this corner to be rounded, but this corner and this corner not to be rounded. I can do that. So I can unclick right here and definitely kind of gives it a more modern look. You can do the same thing with your navigation. So I'll kind of show you how to do that as well. Just kind of gives it a little bit of a flair, something different. All right, so let's, whoops, and again, you might want to just change the fill to none here on this rectangle and give a little bit more room so that way your form or your submit button is not sitting right there on your footer. So let's preview this and test it out. And it might not send my form because I haven't uploaded to the server. It might give me an error when I try to send my form. So we'll double check, but I can at least see, you know, how things are doing. My cell phone. Hello. And submit. And, ooh, I might change that color because now that I'm looking at this, I don't really like that for submit color. So I might change that to pink now that I've seen that. And it's going to tell me submitting this form won't work. I need to upload my site. So the server encountered an error, but I can see that my error works. So let me go back in. And see, just by kind of testing out my site, I know that normal rollover, mouse down, rollover. Which one was it? Rollover I want to change. Probably want to change that to pink as well. It'll be a white border. And maybe the font white. Maybe like something crazy like yellow. Although that doesn't really go in my color scheme. Go white. Oh, I need to re-upload that. I forget sometimes that I'm not in Dreamweaver. In Dreamweaver, you can refresh the page if you've saved it. Right, exactly. Sometimes designers get bored with rectangles. Exactly. So there we go, a little bit different. So now that feels like it goes a little bit better together. I probably would give myself, I need to give myself a little bit more room. My form's definitely right on top of my logo. So again, thinking about where things are placed, move that down a bit and then move my rectangle down. That's kind of giving some room. Save this. And again, yours will go on your second page. It'll go with your either your tabbed panel or your accordion panel. So it's not going to go on a contact page like I have set up. But it'll kind of show you how you can do the same thing that we just did, but with your navigation. Let me bring my widgets, get my widgets out of the way. So let me select my home menu items. I'm going to change my corner radius again on this one. Oh, come on. Oh, whoops. Hold on. You can kind of see where it did it. It did it right here. I don't know what I had selected. All right, there we go. Pretty cool. A little bit different. You can do it for these. Nope, that was not what I wanted to do. Menu. All pages. All right. There we go. Well, maybe, oh, I'm getting a little too crazy with this. And save. See what happens even if I'm just trying to show something. I'm like, well, wait a minute, what would it look like this? So just a little bit different, you know, different feel. I mean, you could even do that with your form. You could kind of round those corners. See? Something a little bit different, just to kind of make it stand out. You can, you know, place your form on top of an image if you wanted. Can we align the word submit with the button just like normal? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. The word is low. Oh, it is low. You're right. And honestly, there isn't, like, watch when I zoom in. There isn't a separate text box for some reason for this. So what I would do, and it's driving me bananas too, I would extend the box just a little bit manually to get that to fill. It's, yeah. That's what I would do. And I'm glad you noticed that because that was bothering me too. It's like, that's why when I read that, I'm like, I wonder if you're talking about what I'm talking about, but I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, you can. You'll just have to kind of extend the size of the button. All right, so this is how we set up the form and those panels, which will fulfill the requirements for our assignment for this week. I will tell you, anything that you submit for the assignment, make sure that you're going back and fixing anything that I asked you to fix from assignment and assessment in week 1. Because we're continuing on at this point, and I will point out things that weren't fixed, so I just want to let you know. Is there anything else I can go over for you guys before we end for tonight? All right, great. Well, thank you so much for being able to make it tonight. Hopefully you'll be able to make it tomorrow. So again, tomorrow we're going to go over those breakpoints and creating breakpoints. There's going to be a little bit more to that when we go over that. But thank you again. And if you have any questions between now and tomorrow, oh, no problem, no problem. Just as long as you're watching on your own, that's always acceptable. I just appreciate it when people are here and I don't feel like I'm talking to myself for 2 hours, although I can do it. But I hope to see you guys tomorrow. And again, if you have any questions between now and then, just shoot me an email. And I will see you then. All right, have a great night, you guys.